Here we go on our first mini camp podcast. It is a Wednesday. We were all out at practice on Tuesday. Let's get right to it. Mary Kay, what stood out to you from Tuesday?
Well, the two biggest things that I went in looking for were Odell Beckham Jr. in his first practice since tearing the ACL, and then Jadeveon Clowney on the other side of the ball, practicing with the Cleveland Browns for the very first time, and also coming off of a torn meniscus. So those were the two big things that I wanted to see. Now, where we were standing, it was hard to see the offense. They were on the very far field, and it was difficult. I could see some things because I had binoculars, but if you didn't have binoculars, it would have been really, really hard to see what was going on over there. But you could tell that that Odell Beckham Jr. in his first practice back didn't do those mind-blowing things that we were seeing him do on social media. He was very, very limited. He was kept to individuals drills and just a few drills on air. Didn't participate in the team stuff, the 11 on 11s. He was not doing those kinds of things. So good to see him back out there. Good to see him back with the team. But we didn't really get to see him, just lighting it up and showing off the fact that he's doing great, only 6.5 months out of surgery. Just real briefly, Clowney, I was very impressed with what I saw with Jadeveon Clowney, just in terms of just his physical stamina, his explosiveness, his quickness, and just watching him practice for the first time and interact with the guys. It was a cool thing to see.
We got a close-up view of the defensive line because, like you said, that's kind of the group that was closest to us. And I spent a lot of the time looking at Clowney and looking at Myles Garrett, just kind of comparing them in a way, because we all know Myles Garrett. I mean, we saw him at the draft with his suit that I'm sorry, I don't know who put him in that suit, but it clearly was not a suit that fit him properly. Still, it probably scared the bejesus out of most quarterbacks seeing him in that suit. Anyways, he looked the same way in his uniform today, just, the jersey and shorts and everything. But compared to Clowney, who about an inch taller, about 20 pounds lighter, it's like Myles Garrett is your power forward, right? And then Clowney is more like your stretch three. He's not as bulky as Myles Garrett, but obviously they are both imposing. And watching them go through drills, they definitely stood out. Nobody really matched Myles Garrett going around there. They kind of had a figure eight drill set up to kind of mimic getting around the corner, and nobody really matched Myles Garrett in that. But Clowney looked fine in the drills that he did, and any concerns about him coming off a season where he missed most of the time to injury, I think they got to be pretty confident going into this offseason about where he's at.
Okay, so let's go back to Odell real quickly. I was surprised to see him. Obviously, I wasn't surprised to see him there. I was surprised to see him, like, when we first arrived, doing individual drills, and it didn't appear there was a brace on the knee or anything like that. I was surprised. I thought maybe we'd see him just stand on the side or something for most of practice. And obviously he wasn't out there in team stuff, but I thought he looked really good. And this is one of those cases where, you see the stuff on social media and he looks really good, but only the good stuff goes on social media anyway. But this seemed to kind of mimic what we've been seeing all along from him in his rehab.
Yeah, I think it just really bodes well for training camp and for the start of the season. I think he really looks to be on track to be able to play against the Kansas City Chiefs on September 12th. Now, no one knows for sure if he'll be able to play the whole game. No one knows for sure if he'll even start the game. But it looks to me like he's on pace for that. And I think that's just great for the Browns, because I think he can be the difference maker in that game. I mean, you get him out there and he's raring to go. I think that almost man for man, just if you just break it down, I think the Browns really do match up very, very well against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, of course, we all know right now the Chiefs still have the edge at quarterback, but with all the talent around Baker Mayfield, I think that the Cleveland Browns can give them a run for their money, not only in the opener, but of course, more importantly, when they have to face them again, most likely at some point in the playoffs.
Scott, what did you think of Odell when you saw him today? And again, obviously, this was one of those things where we just didn't get to see a lot, but I mean, when you show up and you see him going through those individual drills.
Yeah, it was, I mean, and I didn't see much of I noticed that he was there. It's just like we've said with Grant and Greedy, the fact that guys like that are on the field at this point in the offseason is important because they were all question marks going into this offseason. We didn't really know when they would get back on the field. And, if none of those guys, if we had seen none of them during OTAs or minicamp and had to wait till training camp, I don't think that would have been a shocker. I think we probably would have looked at that as like, they're being cautious and why have them out there, but they are doing drills, and whether it's against air or whatever, at least, in Odell's case, at least they're out there doing that. So it would, it's got to give the coaching staff some excitement, Baker some excitement, fans some excitement. And it's, you're kind of crossing some questions off the board here going into the offseason.